looking at is we are going to be looking at this ship that I've been working on. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of time on it. And what we're looking at is the Validator. Now the Validator, the one that I have finalized, or at least come to a conclusion where I think this is as good as it's going to be from right now, until I change it some more, is an in-game ship. If you're wondering, and there's a part 1 to this as well. In-game ship, if you go to built-in ships, you go to Monolith, you go to Combat, and you look for the Validator. Validator's right here. Now this is a very nice ship. Very hard to beat at the same cost range if you were trying to actually encounter it, so it's right here as well. And then I've made many iterations of it from part 1. If you look at it, I think I pretty much stopped at 2.0-ish, and then at 2.0 you'll notice that it's still kind of similar, but it hasn't been changed too much. And what I've changed in full from a 2.0 to 2.56 now, many iterations later, is I've changed a lot of the roles, the role priorities, how things are actually placed, moving around the innards of it. I moved around the actual crew. I moved around the actual and put in capacitors. Changed the indications, opened up the actual back so that you can actually make it in, added walkways, removed all the lights, and also, and hello Hosep, I've also layer stacked the armor for diagonal depending on how it is. So you see right here, this is layer stacked in the front, and then from the side, I layer stacked the armor on the side as well. So if you come over here and you look at the original, and you think these small little things don't matter, but they do. You see how this is not layer stacked, see how it's block. It's not layer stacked on the sides. These light pieces don't actually add any extra armor, which is kind of bad. It also changed some of the back as well. As you'll notice, there's back armor and it's layer stacked for specific reasons. But let me showcase how the original Validator and how it actually plays out against the modified Validator. This one right here. Huge differences. I also need to show you role priorities as well. Tiny itty bitty changes of role priorities make a huge difference between each one of these ships. Now this is not the scenario where it's nice where they actually get in and they lock onto each other, so they're just gonna fly by each other back and forth multiple times. But the thing about this ship right here is it will run out of ammo in the back. So in the beginning, because it has just ammo and doesn't have any factories, the back salvos do shoot more often and faster. Where if we have this one will last longer because I have factories in the back. Factories that are constantly producing, and then we have capacitors for the actual factories because it has energy issues and energy problems when you're facing it front to front and actually attacking. So there's a lot of things that I tweaked on this and changed significantly. One of the biggest things that I changed on this, I know they're flying back and forth between each other, is the energy supply. On energy supply, you'll notice that over here when you check on the actual energy, I changed the small shields to a 9. Now this makes a huge difference when it's encountering front to front, where if you come over here and you look at this one, the energy supply on this one, when you edit the roles and look at it, the original only has an 8. Now the 8 also have to think about how it works with everything else. So you see right here, the shields are all placed and they will constantly try to put up the shields over the engine rooms. Where this one will have problems with power supplied to the shields just by one priority difference. And one priority difference makes a huge difference when facing each other. Now you see how this one ran out of ammo on the back, and this one still has plenty of ammo. I still have 2 whole sulfur spots for each factory to constantly keep firing. So even though this ship is still lasting, and you see how the shields are down, this ship will outlast this ship and almost win almost all the time. Now the other thing that I also changed as well is they have capacitor suppliers. And I made changes to the actual capacitor suppliers. Make sure this is a 10. And I made a bunch of other changes to the role priorities as well. I do believe I also made them factory supply as well, so I gave them an 8. So if they don't have anything to do or they're not supplying the capacitor, they can come over here and grab energy and actually supply these guys so that the white guys or any other guys don't have to run away and walk away to do a different duty. The other thing that I also changed as well is the operator. There's an operator that's sitting on the original that doesn't actually supply power capacity. So I gave this one a 4, And I changed the priority for this role right here for him to actually supply this power capacitor because of the walking. So he actually has one guy that's just sitting doing nothing. He will actually get out and actually supply power to that capacitor. So every single unit, every single person on this ship actually has a role or priority, and every little tiny tweak has a reason for the reason why I tweaked it. So every little thing that's done on the ship has a reason. Extending this armor out this way because I wanted to be able to flanking. Now this is the other use case scenario where they get stuck on each other. So this is more of a how does it deal when facing straight up against each other. Now this one, like I said, because this ammo's right here, can pound through and destroy one of the cannons in the beginning pretty easily. I also moved the fire extinguishers back here because if you notice, if the fire extinguishers are next to this cannon, if you look at the original, if this fire extinguisher here and they lose one of these cannons, these fire extinguishers become useless, as well as the crew on the side and the speaker on the side. So at least these fire extinguishers can be used for those ones. Now these are going to blow up, and that's totally fine. And you can see right here, this ship still lost, even though I lost a cannon in the beginning. So even though he has greater firepower here, this ship has more protection, more shield, better priorities, so the crew members are more fleshed out and more have actual priorities to set out to where they need to go to function a lot better. The other things that you'll also notice to change on this as well is you notice there's no capacitors here, so that's why this has nothing on it. There's no extreme back armor in the back, and there's not enough side armor on the side. Now the main reason why there's side armor on the side and everything else, you see the cost is not that much more, it's just a little bit more, around 40-ish K more. But if you take this validator right here, and this is going to be announcing the challenge as well. So I have a challenge number 10 announcement for everybody, for those that actually want to go ahead and participate in it, and they want to actually get a title in our Discord channel. What I'm going to do is, and this may or may not be the swarming test, but just so you know, this ship, the Validator, was designed to be able to take on 2 of these ships. And you'll notice that the cost is significantly higher. 938,000 with 163 crew. 2 ships versus 1 ship. And what this Validator is now designed with all the updates and all the changes is it stands a chance, it doesn't always win, but it stands a chance against winning against both of these ships. So if you want to have a test of a swarming test, you want to be able to see, can you beat 2 of these ships versus 1 of these ships? And you notice that how pounding this ship is, hitting from the sides, hitting from the back. Did lose that piece of armor, but the engine rooms are still in play, which is very important for the Validator in his being able to move and take damage. And then the armor was placed in very specific spots so that it does stand a chance. It doesn't always win against this one. And then what happens is here, once this ship is destroyed, you have to come over here and mark this as junk, and then it can turn and actually face the other one. Now it doesn't always win versus 2 of these ships, but in many cases it does win. If I change this one to junk fast enough, which is how the end game would actually be, is this would turn into junk, and then you would switch to the next target and actually fight against the next target. Now this use case scenario is not going to win. So when you do the swarming challenge for the ship that you actually submit, we're going to give you 3 chances out of a swarming test for the ship that you have, and these again may or may not actually be the actual swarmers that you'll be facing. But you want to be able to see, can you take damage from the back? Can you take damage from the side against heavily being fired upon by 2 different ships from all different angles? Can you be able to take it on? For the Validator, now with the design, as you can see, there's armor placed specifically in specific spots so that it can take on. And right here, I'm going to pause the game just so that I actually stand a chance. Mark that as junk, and I'll do the same thing for the participants. And then that ship is gone, and then now it turns toward this ship, and you'll see that we still haven't lost many of the engine rooms. We still haven't lost too much of the side armor. It's been able to tank all of that, and then full on come in and actually take on the secondary ship. So this is where the test use scenario would be. You have 3 chances, take on as many swarmers, whatever the swarmers will be. These may or may not be them, and that is part of the challenge. Now, part of the other things as well, if you look in the description of this video, it will announce all the things that you can or cannot do a part of this challenge. So if you're looking for a good challenge in Cosmoteer, in my own personal opinion, is build a ship that could beat this ship, that's a front-to-front engagement, not a kiter, not one that's purposely trying to fly away or hit it from far away, and be able to take on a ship like this, as well as be able to take on the swarming test, 2 ships at once, that also cost much more than your ship. And that would be a very, very nice design. We'll see what people come up with. All right, now we'll come back to the Validator now that we've announced that particular challenge. And just take a look at more what was done, because I know I blazed through it and made people watch these videos purposely to see what has changed and how it's changed. So over here, I added this piece of armor here. I know it's in part 1, this piece of armor here. And this part right here is rounded out specifically to bounce off when you're facing swarmers. So when you get locked in the swarmer type of scenario, it's actually not good for the Validator in that situation. This armor right here are not covering it, and the main reason why these are spaced out, specifically having a 1 layer armor and then a 2nd layer armor, is specifically because when a swarmer is trying to hit you, there are weak points right here. And if you're hitting from the side and you take out this piece of armor, and hit right here, then this cannon goes up in flames. So without adding too much extra weight, you're adding protection from the side and adding protection from the side. And then over here, I used to actually have a tiny bit more armor in the back here. But the problem is armor to ratio. When you're thinking about the AI, where's the AI trying to target? I had to smooth this out, and I constantly had to play with the armor in the back so that it didn't target right here all the time, but target. Because if you put too much armor here, then their focus becomes on something else. So you have to play with the armor where you add too much armor or too little armor. It really makes a big difference. And that's what took so long with the actual trials between each ship, is trying to figure out, okay, how much armor do I put? How much armor do I take away? Now I know I also mentioned in the beginning too with the layer stacking of armor. The layer stacking, you see this armor is block, 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 block. This is way less protection for the side compared to here. This is now layer stacked, and this is layer stacked on the side here. So the original designer, they just took the time and they only cared about the front armor. So you see right here, the front armor is layer stacked, but once you get down here, this is not layer stacked anymore. This is just placed block, 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 block. And you got to think of which is the angles that the ship's going to be hit at when you're being attacked. So not just layer stacking the front armor like bricks, you layer stack the sides as well. And in this part too, you layer stack this part as well. It increases the armor significantly by a lot. And these tiny little minute changes is the reasons why the front armor on this one can withstand more than this one, as well as changing the priorities of the shields. So not just changing the priority of shields, changing the layer stacking of the armor so that it can withstand and actually take more and be able to dish more. Now you remember how those lights I was talking about, these lights? These lights cosmetically look cool, but you saw when the cannons were shooting at them, they had no armor value at all. So if you're trying to build a ship, and yes, cosmetically make it look nice, but also be able to make it utilize and be better, the lights are cool, but they add no protection. They're just cosmetic, and they're a cosmetic piece. So when you put them in critical spots where you actually need them, for example, if I come over here and look at this one, this is a critical spot in my personal opinion. Putting a light right here and putting lights right here, right next to your factory, this makes it super weak. So as soon as you lose this piece of armor right here, all you got to do is it blows up right through it, and then once this reactor gets hit, it goes boom. Now because they lost both cannons, they're dedicated more to shields and everything else. You see right there, it just blows up and you're no longer tanking. Nice to have lights for cosmetic value, but it doesn't add any actual real protection. So something to think about when you're building your ships and looking at them and actually going through them. Another thing that you'll see right here that I've changed, a lot of the innards, I've changed how the fire extinguishers, having double fire extinguishers near the actual deck cannon is more important. So if you're trying to think of ratio of how many fire extinguishers you need for an actual deck cannon, if a deck cannon catches on fire, one fire extinguisher is not enough to save it. You need 2. And not just 2 here, I also have 2 more here. So there's a 3rd fire extinguisher that's close by, where these guys in white will go grab it to be able to actually save the deck cannon. So if you can actually live long enough and the deck cannon goes on fire, for those that don't know, 1 fire extinguisher is not enough for the amount of space and how fast the fire spreads. So you need at least 2, 3 is preferred. In this case, there's 4 close by for an actual fire, and they're centralized so that anybody can grab them really quickly and help to put out the fire. The other thing that it also moved around too, and you see it has a fire extinguisher back here and they have a fire extinguisher here, but because of the placement of this fire extinguisher next to the deck cannon, Once the deck cannon blows up, this fire extinguisher becomes completely useless. Where these fire extinguishers back here, even though this deck cannon goes boom, these ones can still be used through the rest of the ship. So it's very, very important when you're building out your ships. Think about placements of how everything is put. I know I've already talked a lot, explained a lot about the Validator, and the Validator that's now updated and changed. If you're interested in seeing this model and actually playing with it and trying it out, or want to participate in the challenge, you're welcome to join our Discord channel and pick it up where it's placed so anybody can actually use and test it out, and then also modify, change however you want to use it. Feel free to do that. I've noticed that here it actually blew up this whole section right here. So if the AI decided to target this section right here, it actually blew it up even more. So this is where, do the shields actually play into place based on the role priorities? Can they withhold against 4 cannons? So see how it's locked in here? And this one also lost here, so it's now cut off. So these ones will run out of energy. But you can see right here, the modified Validator, front armor is very little changed. Blows up the original Validator most of the time. I'm gonna say most of the time. It doesn't win all the time, but I think it wins almost all the time that I've tested. I haven't had it lose yet. It does sustain heavy damage because the ship is almost very similar and identical on the frontal. But you can see tiny little role priority changes make a huge difference to how your overall ship works. And then there's this huge back armor, and then making it utilized so it actually can be an in-game ship. Still has power issues with just a medium reactor, but it's a great ship. It's so great in the fact that I like it so much. Even the original Validator can do this, but almost all the ships that I have ain't even close to the same cost range, or even more. Like 857 ship, this one right here, this one doesn't even stand a chance. This ship, as long as you get into the angle on the side of this ship, this was my pride and joy, which if you've seen in my actual other games. This ship right here, which is a 6 cannon ship, costs way more than the Validator. What you see right here, it just wipes out the side and then wipes out this ship in full. Barely, and the Validator sustains a very minimum amount of damage. That's how powerful the Validator is, and when I saw it, I was like, okay, I have to work on it, I have to make it even better. Now the only other ship, this one as well, the 916,000 with 150 crew, this one has a ton of armor on it. And even this ship also still loses sometimes to this ship. Now this ship mainly would win because you can see it has so many more shields and everything else. But you can see right here, you get in the right angle with the Validator and boom, you take up the side and it's gone. This is why the Validator, so if you want a good ship to test against your ships, to see can your ship validly take against a ramming PvP ship. This is not a full PvP ship. Full PvP ship, you would probably take away the actual hyperdrives and reduce its cost even more, and you could also reduce a bunch more other things on it as well for a full PvP ship. The Validator, the one that I modified, is supposed to be an in-game ship, but extremely deadly. As you can see, it will get you from the side. It's meant to ram and get in from different angles and just take out ships. So even this booster ship loses to the modified Validator in many ways. Even in a front facing battle, these shields, they can't always withstand 4 deck cannons constantly pounding on it and taking out different sections of it. So your ship has to do just as much damage as the Validator. So the challenge is, I think it's a very valid challenge. And I think it's a great way for people to think of, well, how can I build a better ship that can beat a ramming ship that's modified to really do a lot of damage and really hit you from all different type of angles. We'll do another test here from that boost. Like, I don't even have that many ships that can full and take on it. I've never even tested it against this missile one. But I have a lot of other ships. Another ship that I want to test against as well would be this one. Now 2 of these is actually even more deadly than those laser walls because of how they're shaped. Well, in a front-to-front battle. Now from the side to side, these things do have weak points from the sides. But these laser walls, when you do 2 versus 2 versus the other laser wall that I'm showing you, these ones actually almost always win just because of their angles. Because you see right here, there's this huge frontal armor that has these shields. And then once you can come in from behind just like this, you can see these 2 flankers are even more deadly than the other laser walls because they can fly in different angles and they can hit you from 2 different sides. So having 2 of these ships, and you can see how fast they can rotate, turn, and maneuver, are very, very deadly ships to encounter for full laser ships. I actually do want to play the actual game now that I've made a whole bunch of ships and made them for different purposes and different reasons. Full laser ships compared to deck cannon ship. You can see in that particular swarming scenario, didn't even stand a chance, but obviously the cost is more than double. Well, actually, about double, a little bit around double. And then you can see right here, if you get in an angle like this, which is what the Validator is supposed to do, hit it from an angle, you can blow up the ship. Now, as I'm looking at this ship and as I've learned a lot more about the game, because these are older versions of it, there are things I actually want to change on this ship in the innards to fix it more, to make it even more utilized, change up the crew a little bit more. But you can see right here, it stays very little damage, only lost one large shield and just a tiny bit of damage. But if it stays like this and you can hit from behind, this is what makes the Validator so deadly, is you see how it's flying around and making you force you in multiple different angles while still tanking. If you can't lock it in and you can't get behind the Validator and do enough damage, quick burst damage to get it from behind, it will do a lot of damage to you. At least the version that I graded. So, in my personal opinion, I really, really like it. It's a ship that I wanted to work on. The next ship that I do want to work on, I know there's a whole bunch in Discord for Pimp My Ship, but the next ship that I do want to work on is I'm thinking, I don't really like to build ones that are just that big, over, you know, a million, 2 million, but I'm thinking I'm going to go with Black and Bruised and or go with the Master of None. Now these are both in-game ships that came out in the most recent patch. Super, super fun ships, at least in what I'm looking at and what I see. The Master of None just literally has so much of everything on it. It's got nukes, it's got EMP, it's got missiles on it, it's got ion beams, it's got railguns, it's got chain guns, it's got deck cannons. It's got near everything. Does it even have heavy lasers on it? Or disruptors? I don't even know. It's got a little bit of everything. And the other one right here, this one reminds me of the Blacksmith, but in some form or fashion, maybe a little bit more deadly. I think the Black and Bruised, one of its biggest concerns that I have is it's not a fast ship. And because it's not a fast ship, I may or may not want to work on this one. I'm still thinking about considering it and going through it and working on it a little bit more. Alright, now that we've touched on what I want to touch on for the Validator, I think what we're going to do now is I'm just going to come over here. We're going to do a new folder. This is going to be August 2024. We're going to do a new folder in this one. And it is 8/18. Okay. Let's come over here and let's look at some community ships. So, I know it's been a while since I've been able to get through a lot of these, but let's go up. We have a lot of people that have posted a lot of different ships. I think the last one that we looked at was Host Starship, so let's do this one. So this one was built by Nam Creo. This is a rail volley ship. So obviously you would have to take the ship and you have to rail fan it to go back and forth. The AI hasn't ever came to a fact where it would actually do it in an AI battle, sadly. But this is actually a pretty neat rail fan. That's a lot of sulfur. But I do like how many railguns are on this. This is actually a super deadly ship when you think about it. Okay, so 1.5 million. Here's a real test for it. If you take this, you come over here, but I'm going to self-control it. You take this one, you restart the battle, then you remove the volley tests, and then I come over here and we go to August. We take in this ship. We decide we want to hit here, and then we rotate. Oh, it's firing at will. Okay, we gotta change the guns. And I don't have it set. You want to change the actual railguns to fire at target so that it actually goes through and does that better. So we have to actually restart this. Just restart it. Then remove that one and drag this one in. Okay, so I need to come over here. I'll pause that for a second. I'll Control Shift. Take each one of these. We change this to number 1, and then you change this to fire at target. There. Now we select the target like this. We hit the R key, and now we can slowly rotate back and forth so that each one hits right down the middle as we need to. Now I can see right here it's probably not going to do what I wanted to do. You see it's being pounded to the extreme. But it still did rail fan through what I wanted it to do-ish. Salute unexcited. But I think the amount the players... So we still did win, you see right here. It still did drill through. But I think some of the issues right here is it's not tanky enough versus a Polaris, as you see right here. It still won. But took huge amount of damage, lost all the sulfur, which is if you're playing the game in-game, once you lose all your sulfur caches, that's a huge amount of resources you have to remine and re-get back. So something to definitely consider, but it's still a niche ship. So Namkiro, thank you for sharing. The next ship we're going to look at here is Butter's ship, a new career ship for a faction he's building out. So this is a Regentus. Now the Regentus, oh, I actually like this shape and design. And then if you look at the paint on it, and then the AI is trying to target this right here, so it has a ton of armor that they placed right here. But if you see this reminds me of some of those older type games with that paint and this huge like a. If you've ever seen Robotech, it reminds me of an Invent type of ship, but the colors are off. But still, it's kind of neat. That is a cool ship. I like the shape. I like the design. I don't like how someone has walked away from you. See it, nobody's shooting. So I think there's some priorities and dedications that might need a little bit of tweaking. See how there's nobody here, and then there's no power here. So there's a little bit of tweaking that I would suggest doing to this one, Butter, when you get a chance. I don't like how people keep walking away from the actual thing and then power's not being dedicated to them for specific reasons. Maybe there's more dedicated to shields, but then have guys dedicated just for shields or have guys just dedicated to actually supplying power in some form or fashion. It's okay for them to walk away, or you see how they're sitting there not walking while they still have a chance to get power. So I would give them dual priorities. If they're sitting here in the area and they have no power at all, then yes, they could get up to get power to go supply them. Or we change dedication so they have people that are dedicated to actually supply power to them. But something to definitely look at and fix for people that are looking at this and how to build your ships and how to fix them. It takes a lot of work to look at and decide on that, but definitely something you can work on. Alright, the next ship we're going to look at here is built by Namkuro. It's a rail starter ship. So this can be a ship that you can play the game and actually start the game with it. Huh. Now that's interesting. That's interesting. No, the flashlight's good. You can go use it. My kid's over here. Go ahead. You can use that flashlight. That's a cool little tiny starter railgun ship. For those that want to actually see it, it's in our Discord channel, and you're welcome to come join and check out what people have posted there. Now this one right here is also built or modified by Namkuro. This is a starter ship Model S with a heavy laser. So if you're looking for those starter ships, you're trying to think of, well, what can I build from the very, very beginning? If you want to start with an actual heavy laser, but stick very, very close to it, you are welcome to check out to see all these different modifications on what people can build. I think this is kind of neat. Now I do see that right here, there's role priority dedications that need a tiny bit, maybe more changing. And that's going to be to heavy laser once it fires and shoots. Once it runs out, not going to be doing as well. The other thing too, when you were to face something like this, if you had somebody with disruptors or something like that, it'd be able to take it out pretty easily. Now this Namkuro is also another ship that Namkuro built. This is a broadsider in testing. Okay. So what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to change on the side, broadside, and attack from the side. Yeah, just like it's doing right now. It's actually kind of neat. I like how they have the point defenses with shields and the actual far enough back to still protect them. And then armor to place on this as well. That's actually a pretty interesting broadsider. I would like to see it in a semi-smaller scale, because once you get to this cost range, it's a little very expensive to make and then maintain. I would like to see the same ship Namkuro, but on a smaller scale. And yeah, they have mining lasers on it as well. 2 of them at least. There's some people dedication problems. So people walking away from the deck cannons. Some of these reactors are a little close to each other, but they seem to be working. I would personally change some, because you see you have a whole bunch of crew members standing around-ish. And see how this chain reaction blew up everything? Change some of these reactors to capacitors, and then supply from the bigger supply chain, and then have runners specifically to be dedicated to those capacitors. Will reduce the cost significantly. We'll also have runners specifically dedicated for the capacitors. There's a lot of work to make those priority changes, but I think that would definitely improve that one a lot. Still, would like to see it on a smaller scale instead of the 3.4 million that it's currently at. I like the way that it is an actual broadsider, and it has protections, so it has point defenses on each side, so that's pretty neat. Alright, the next ship we're going to look at here is built by Alnara. This one, it says a little on the expensive side, 210 credits, 210 credits, but wanted to make this ship really small. That's a lot of... I'm not going to read the whole description, but just take a look at it. It's called Justice. I like the paint. And there's a mining laser in the back. There are small lasers. I like the walkways that you have in there, but I would suggest probably changing the walkways a little bit more. Utilize them a little more. I see a lot of people running in and out, but if you added more walkways, then they could move around a little bit faster, a little bit quicker around to the ship where they need to be. There's a lot of movement. More walkways. You have the space for it. Move a few things around, and I think you'd be able to have this even more effective than what it currently is. Still, I like the utilization of these cannons, so just standard cannons. I like the utilization of the lasers. You can see here, this is your damage reduction because people are running around. but nobody's supplying energy to the lasers as quickly as they should. Eventually they do get to them, but they're not shooting as often. Bitter benefits with the changes. So, like Unexcited said right there, probably dropping the small lasers and or adding dedicated runners specifically for powering up the actual lasers. Because if your lasers are not firing, you're not doing damage. Just like if your disruptors are not firing, you're not ripping off the shields. So if your weapons are not constantly firing and people are just sitting there, then you have literally a crew member sitting there doing nothing. And you don't want them to walk away, but you want them to be supplying energy to it so it's actually doing damage. Could you please check the power dedications? Let's see. So they have power dedications, double for lasers, and they have power dedications here. And they has power dedications for this to this. There's definitely things I would suggest changing somewhat here and there. But the power dedications seem to be semi-chaotic. Yeah, there's things I would change, but definitely something you can work on. Reactors should only be dedicated to the capacitors. It makes sense. Capacitors and engine rooms, like you can remove this, you can remove this, you can remove, that's okay to that one. The engine rooms are going to be fine. And then, there's so many things you can do with this thing. This right here is not. This one's not dedicated enough for anything else. It's just to the mining lasers and to these. But you could also say this is dedicated to the control room. And then these right here it has dedications for those, but it's not a. And then you need to come over here and you need to change some of your crew because you have energy loaders, but you need people specifically dedicated for power 2. So your energy loaders, I would actually have some of these people dedicated just for running power to the capacitors. And the jump door drive is also missing doors, which is this one, which is exactly what Unexcited is saying. But there's a lot of things you can fix on the ship. So something to think about on there whenever you actually get to watch this particular video. Definitely work on and check it out. The next ship that you have here that I know I've made is called a Hope. It's Justice and Hope. I like the overall shapes and the cool paint design. Definitely a cool paint design. That is interesting that you have a single. I don't know why it reminds me of the movie Firefly. What it does with the paint design, and that's kind of neat. Interesting shape. So they have power dedicated to the disruptor, but your lasers not have any power dedicated to it. Or they do have dedicated, but the row priorities is nobody supplying this laser. They're just supplying that disruptor. So based on the color of the guy that was running around, you would go over here, you would check your energy loader, you would check your energy loader, and you would check the priorities for supply battery, and they have 7 for disruptor and 7 for laser blaster, but they were not supplying any power to lasers. Oh, and that's also true. Thank you, Lanera, for saying that the other one, the Hope, this dedication, not Hope's Justice. Justice only had a crew of 24. So even with a crew of 24, it was still nicely designed. So I do like that too. Cut a little later. Missing doors in the link in the storage. Medium jump drive is inaccessible. Interesting placement, this one. And then once you lose this side, I would probably change, well, I guess you can't enter from that, so you would have to enter from this side and then get power from the capacitor for the... I think it's overall, it's a nice design. Nice shape, beautiful ship. This one's only 44 crew. And for what you design here, Alnara, really, really cool ship. I like it. And I like how you put HCF47. I don't know what the 47 stands for. Or the HCF, but it's kind of neat. And then there's a A1, and then I don't know, it's really, really cool. I love the paint. I could see this as an actual in-game ship that you would fight against in a faction battle. Create a faction on it. I wanted to go for 2 missiles, but just didn't have the crew numbers for it. Yeah, this looks like an in-game ship that was built, that was fleshed out and built. I would also suggest, because you have all this empty space sometimes, watch how they walk around, and you can probably fix and or change some of the walkways, because it's a big ship for 44 crew. And so for people to walk around and get to where they need to get to, you need more walkways and or exactly where people are walking, and then add the walkways so that they increases their speed and utilization. And one of the most important key steps that I always try to hit on when I'm trying to modify ships, HCV equals Hope Class Frigate. Cool. That's actually pretty nice. It rhymes. Probably redo the mirror text. Mirror has a downside with text. Unexcited is talking about the actual paint job. So when you're looking at these walkways and you're trying to, it's easier to look at like this. When you see how the guys walk and they get power out, it's always better the walkways are assisting them when they're carrying power, because when a guy's not carrying power, a crew member's not carrying power, they walk faster when not holding, compared to trying to walk against the actual walkways. So think of how you want the walkways to be in and out, in and out. And since this is placed this way, I would actually probably add a third door here, so you have people come in and out, one way, out another way. So everybody comes in, and they come in this way, and this can be a walkway out. So just a simple quick change that you can change in here, and this is just for people that are joining. I know a lot of people have seen a lot of my videos that are watching the live stream. But what I'm suggesting here is what you would change, and this is just a small tiny change, is you add another door, and then you change this walkway so you have a dedicated out, and those can be in. So you see, they can come in, and this is a dedicated out. Come in, this is dedicated out. And you can change these walkways even more. But see, this tiny little change that you do right here on this, what happens is when you're watching them, and as they walk in and out, you have them come in, and then they come out fast. But I can see right here, now I got to change this to be a down. And you see right here, this messed that up. So this has to actually be a down to go back in quicker. That's a down in, that's it. And you just watch how they move, and then make the walkways so they're a little bit better. There's still more changes that I could do to it too, but that takes a lot of finagling and changing. But it's just to showcase people that when you add more walkways, you see how that speeds them up just a tiny bit more. And that's just in this area. If we can make more walkways that can speed them up this way, or make it so it's a circular, that would help it move a lot more. I'll move the Raptor up one. You know, really, this crew slows down when carrying. Yeah, crews go slower while they're carrying energy. And that's Sloth 897 that just commented. So if you're holding energy, they move slower. And then if they're moving against the current of the walkways, they move even slower. So that's why you always want them faster when they're coming out. And then if it's against it while they're walking back, it's okay. So there's a lot of things you can change or fix on it, but walkways are a huge advantage, and that makes a huge difference, especially when you're playing with it. All right, career mode. These are host-up ships. This is a mid-laser B3. Okay, so this is an addition to the original cruise ship that Unexcited placed before. Really, really neat. I like the utilization of all these small lasers, and if you'll notice on Holsip's designs, a lot of his ships, they will constantly have energy in the beginning to keep firing, as you saw they keep firing, but then now the salvo's down. So that's the one downside of having capacitors, is once the capacitors use up all their energy, great huge burst damage at the beginning, but unless you have a bigger reactor, like a medium reactor, supply 2 power to the capacitors, burst damage is great in the beginning. After initial burst, damage tends to lay off, as you see right here. A lot of them don't have power, and then once you don't have power, you're not constantly firing, and then if you're not constantly firing, then having problems. But these are only on the ships that hosted builds where it's dedicated, where these capacitors do play a huge role for that burst damage at the beginning, which works actually really good in career mode, because a lot of ships that you're facing in game, they don't have the sustain. They come in there and they're meant to sacrificial ships, and they attack you, and then they blow up or you destroy them. So if you can have the huge burst damage, which is what we call alpha strike ships, does a lot of damage. Oh, wait, is this Hosep? Oh wait, sorry. I still mix up Unexcited and Hosep. Sorry. I don't know why I do that. I don't know why I keep constantly thinking maybe they're the same person, but they're not the same person. They're completely different. One's in Germany and one's in Korea. And they're very, very different. Alright, this is Hosep ship. Another one of Hosep ship. And this is a My Laser B2. My Laser B2, 223, 22. Wow. These are very low cost ships with a lot of damage on them with a lot of these small lasers. So if you're looking for another type of laser wall with a lot of speed, look how much speed he has on this back. So it has a lot of uptake on the speed. And then point defense is on it as well. So you saw how fast the burst damage did to take out this other ship. This is actually a design. This is a design that I actually really like. I actually want to play with this one some. That is... I'm going to play with that one at some point. I'm going to put a copy here. Okay. I will play with that one. We're not in July, we're in August. Alright. The next ship we're going to go over here is... Where did he put it? Where did I put it? Is it this one? I think it's this one. Mid laser B3 was the other one. This one's just a mid laser. And I don't know the difference between the two, so I'm going to pull in both of them. Because they're very similar class, very, very similar crew. So this is the first one that we saw before, and then this is the newer one, I think. Oh, so this one has more capacitors. Maybe a little bit more armor on the front. You said this is Hoster ship. Probably versions. It's probably a different version. I don't know. He has them both posted in there. You can see the mid laser B3 wins in this case scenario. But yeah, different versions it looks like. One has more capacitors and one has less capacitors. And this one not just has less capacitors, it also has this piece of armor right here. And then it increases the walkway. So what, for people that are coming to watch this, maybe coming in carrying, and just like how Sloth 897 said, is that true when carrying ammo as well? Any crew member that's carrying anything, they move slower. That includes power, ammo, supplies, anything that they're carrying, they will move slower. So definitely for something for you to think on. Whatever they're carrying, they will move slightly slower. I think it's like 25% slower. I don't know the exact amount. Someone can easily correct me if they would double check it and actually look at the code itself. Now this one that we just put in has the exact same name, and it's this one right here, Mid Laser B2. But it actually is the same as this other one. He named them the identical, but they're very different. Okay, this one's different in the shape that the frontal armor right here is more round and not as pointy. And then there's probably some other changes in here as well. Okay, now I'm curious about these two. One is this mid laser B2, and remember I saved another version over here, so there's other mid laser B2. just want to face them versus each other. So this one costs less, 167 with 26 crew, and this one costs more with 30 crew, and it's 223,000. This is the one that I saved, which costs a tiny bit more, has a tiny bit more crew, but I think this one, I don't know, this cheaper one actually wins. Okay, I'm gonna have to look at both ships. But instead of B2, we're just gonna call this one, I'm gonna call this one B3. Okay, I'll have to look at both of those ships. I like both those designs, so we'll play with both of them. So you guys got a B2 and a B3. He named them both B2, so that's why they overrode each other. But we'll take a look at those ships, because I like the design. And I like small ships. I like to work and edit small ships. Make them just a little bit more utilized or change their shape or some form or fashion. Alright, Supremacy 1.1. Probably version, I presume B stands for beta, and the ship without the B is the final version? We should find a global naming convention and confusing for the test variants. Yeah, there's a lot of different ships, so but we'll go through them. Alright, this next person, Butter, made this ship, and this is, for whatever reason, it looks like a letter to me. Like, see if I oh, wrong button. How do I rotate this? Not that way. We can't remember how to rotate. I can't remember how to rotate the map. Oh, like this. Okay. So, what letter does that look like? I don't know. It reminds me of like Star Wars or something, kind of like Darth Vader kind of hat or something, but it's definitely not. Anyways, we rotate this back this way. And these are Chainguns. And I'm thinking the attack defaults. So if I come over here and I reset the attack defaults on this thing, it's just slowly creeping into place. Let me just speed this up a tiny bit so there we go. Okay, so it's got mines and chain guns and oh, and it's got a whole bunch of deck cannons. You know, if you made this more into a straight up triangle, I could say this is a reverse Death Star from Star Wars. But still, that's a lot of firepower. How much does this ship cost? 3.4 million. When you're getting into the super high cost range, this is where it actually does matter how you utilize all your crew and everything, because I see a lot of red crew members, but they're mainly probably for ammo, and then he's got a bunch over here too. But it takes a lot longer to try to fine tooth and tweak each one of these crew members to do specifically exactly what you want it to do. And we're not going to go through that again because it takes too long for them to get in combat. But that's a pretty neat design. Thank you for sharing that one, Butter. The chain guns are unshielded, but they still work for the design that they have. I mean, with the amount that it has on it, it's pretty neat. I don't know why I just pulled in a volley test. So this next ship that Elnara made is called Fury. You know, on Netflix they actually added the movie Fury. I liked Fury, just because I like tanks. But definitely not a real representation of what a Sherman could do. It was definitely Hollywood style. Anyways, Fury. This is in the back. And I'm liking the overall of it, actually. On there, you always build very, very cool ship designs as well as very nice paint jobs, and I like the way the armor's placed and spaced out. The shapes are always really, really neat and interesting. I think Alnera, I would love to see a faction, like if the creator can actually add in a faction. They have mods that you can add factions in, but make all your ships and make factions for them. and see them in game, because I would love to see these ships actually in game and fighting and facing them, because they're beautifully painted and beautifully designed. I'm streaming right now. Do you want to be part of the stream?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a cool ship. I like how these point defenses, you have 4-point defenses, 4-point defenses, and then these tiny little point defenses in the back. Smaller ship, well, small ship in the scale of the grand scheme of it all, but big ship in the way that it's a Fury. It's 1.2 million, 90 crew members, very beautifully painted and designed. Now, my only downside that I have for some of the ships on Era is, besides the paint and everything else, you might want to also look at to see how it can be taken from multiple different angles. What I mean by that is, if you take your ships on Era, and then if you were to face them versus 2 or even 3 of these ships, and I don't know how it's going to do, right? So if you come over here and you're being attacked by 2 or 3 different small little tiny ships, how do these thrusters protect themselves? Or do you have enough reverse thrust to actually do this? So you see right here, it's gonna rip off this because there's no protection here. But this ship is still tanking, and it's costs a lot less. And you see how they took up both sides. And then right here you also have this issue right here where they blew up the back, and then you have this issue where they blew up this back, and they have this issue where they blow up these sides right here. So you see 3 of these small little tiny ships, and this is no fault into how you have to design on Era, but when you can't face this swarming, yes, my kid?
That's mine.
Okay. Can you go watch your show while I finish the stream up? Or can you sit here quietly and just watch?
I want to watch.
Okay, sit here quietly and watch. So you see 3 of these ships, and we still didn't even destroy 1 of these ships. So this is where I was saying, flanking and swarming, huge thing, especially when you're playing in game. Designs are beautiful, but you can see the cost is way less than less. But we have the same amount of crew members, but cost way less. And when you face something like this, that's just something that you think about when you're designing your ships on that, because you're gonna constantly have ships that attack you from multiple different angles. My kid's asking me, whispering, "Come here, tell me what you want."
I choose to watch those in Mommy's bedroom.
Oh, you're gonna watch in Mommy's bedroom? You can. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, be quiet.
Okay, but if she's sleeping, don't wake her up. Okay, I might actually have to end it because I don't want him to go wake up my wife. So I'm actually good to. We'll come back to that one. We'll come back. We'll do more ships later when I have more time. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up right here. We'll just put in 2 of these ships. So if you enjoy this content, please feel free to hit the like button. Helps me out a ton. Helps push out this content to other people. If you like, please feel free to leave me a comment down below. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Especially what you don't like, so that I can improve and make better content. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, that's okay as well. Come back once a week, once a month. Check out what content I have. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. And you all have a wonderful rest of your day.